In this week's video, I want to talk to you about how to solve a problem when you're stuck and you don't know what to do next, along with my top 5 problem-solving practices. Justin here with Succeeded IT. In this channel, I want to help you start and grow your career in IT into something you love and to create the success that you want. Let's get into it. I honestly can't tell you how many times I've ended up with a problem where I feel stuck, where I feel like I'm at a dead end and I don't know what to do next. It's really, really frustrating when this happens. But in the end, every time the problem ends up being solved. I can't stress how important it is to see a problem all the way through to completion. But what should you do when you're stuck and you don't know what to do next? Well, here's my top 5 problem-solving practices. Number 1, step away from the problem. Sometimes when we get stuck solving problems, we end up in a situation where we can't see the bigger picture. There's a saying, you can't see the forest from the trees. Our brain actually has 2 different ways of thinking and solving problems. One is called focused thinking, which is basically your conscious brain actively thinking about something in your head. I'm trying to solve the problem. I'm thinking of all the solutions. This is focused thinking. Another type of thinking is called diffused thinking. This is what happens when you let your mind wander and you go do something else. Step away from the problem, maybe read a book, or even better, go exercise or take a walk. Maybe take a nap. Anything that's going to let your subconscious brain and your focused brain relax and do something else. This will give your brain time to process the information, and you'll find that out of nowhere, all of a sudden, something will come to you that you didn't think of before because you took a break and you gave your brain time to rest. So take a deep breath and step away from the problem. Number 2 is to be pragmatic. It's important to be thorough and very pragmatic when you're stuck and trying to solve a problem. First, start by writing everything down that you've already tried, as well as what the problem is. And while you're writing everything down, say it out loud to yourself. This will help you kind of troubleshoot the problem out loud. This is pretty similar to something that software developers call rubber ducking, where they read their code out loud to a rubber duck that's on their desk, and this helps them find the problem by just reading it out loud and saying it out loud and hearing it back to themselves. So write down what the problem is and say out loud to yourself everything that you've tried to do and write that down as well. This will give you more opportunity to notice anything you may have previously missed. Number 3 is to retest. If you're really stuck, make sure you retest everything as you write it down in your list. Sometimes we might think that we've done something, and when we go and do it again while we're retesting, all of a sudden it works. So why is that? What's happening there? I don't know how many times somebody has brought me in to help solve a problem, and the first thing I do is I say, well, what have you done so far? They start to list off everything that they've tried, and as they're listing it off, I will actually do all of this in front of them and try it a second time. More often than not, something that they've told me that they've already tried, I will do it and it will solve the problem. So what's happening here? Well, first, they get really mad and then they say, I can't believe that worked. I already tried doing that. Why is it that when you do it, it works, and when I do it, it doesn't work? What's happening here is that it's common for us to not be very pragmatic or systematic when trying things. Usually when a problem shows up, the first thing we do is we just start trying everything we know on how to solve that problem. But as the problem continues to progress, we try more and more things, and we've started to lose track of what we've tried and what we haven't tried. In the end, we think we've tried everything, but because we didn't start in a systematic way of troubleshooting and testing, we find that we might miss something. So this is why it's important to go back, write down the problem, write down the things you've tried, retest those things before you bring anybody else in, because there's a pretty good chance that you've missed something or you weren't thorough enough the first time. Number 4 is to bring in outside help. At this point, you should have already written down what the problem is. You also should have written down everything that you've tested as well as retested everything as you go through the list. It's important to make sure that you don't miss anything before you bring in somebody else to help. But once you've done all that and you're still stuck, take this opportunity to bring in a colleague or maybe a manager or some other outside help, perhaps a vendor or a support resource. Finding outside help is always a great option, but try not to make this your first option. You will go much further in your career and you will progress a lot faster if you make sure to take the time to learn how to solve the problems and get unstuck on your own. Don't give up, and eventually you'll become so good at solving problems that you're going to be the person that everybody else comes to. There's only two situations where you should bring in outside help. One, if you've lost all hope. If you've tried everything else and it still isn't working, then of course bring in outside help. The other is if this is an emergency. If this is a situation where production systems are down and you don't have the time to try to troubleshoot this on your own, then it might be better to just bring in the outside help right away. But still, you want to make sure you're pragmatic about it. Write down what the problem is. Write down everything you've tried. You want to be thorough. And my fifth and most important problem-solving practice is, did you try restarting? Maybe we should have tried that first. All joking aside, it can be really frustrating when you've worked really hard on solving a problem. But it's even more frustrating when you bring somebody else in to help and they solve the problem by doing something that you think you already did. So don't give up, be thorough, and finally admit to yourself when you need help and bring somebody else in. And don't get mad if they solve the problem by doing something that you think you've already done, because I think it's inevitable. Sometime in your career, this will happen and it's pretty hilarious. If you like what I'm doing here, please give me a like. I want more people to find my videos. And if you have any questions or comments, please throw them down below. Subscribe to my channel if you're new here. I've got a new video coming out every Tuesday. Hit the notification bell. I'll see you next week.